Hello and welcome to the Yoga in Black podcast, where I have conversations with Black yoga and wellness leaders from across the country. My name is Tierney McDowell, and I too am a yoga instructor and the creator and host of this show. Each week, I'm joined by Black yoga instructors, meditation instructors, or holistic wellness professionals to have a conversation about anything under the sun and the moon. We'll talk about a large variety of topics with the intention for you as listeners to get to know us, get a feel for the vibes, and find your next yoga instructor if you're in search of someone to learn from. All episodes of the podcast are pre recorded, so if we talk about something that happened a while ago, bear with us. We're doing the best we can with the time that we got. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right. Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining into the Yoga in Black podcast. Today, I am joined by Justin High, and I'm not even going to talk anymore. I'm going to let Justin take it over. Tell us who you are, where you're from, where you're currently located, anything under the sun.
Well, I was born and raised right here in Dallas. I have been here pretty much most of my life. I traveled a little bit for college. I went to New York, went to the frozen state of New York. Well, I was upstate, so it was really cool. But I really kind of just I love to travel and I do that stuff, but like New York is like my home away from Texas. And it's unfortunate that I haven't been there a little bit, but I plan to go back pretty soon. But coming back home after college was over, spending a little bit of extra time there, I kind of got into my body. I was a swimmer in college, so I kind of really enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed challenging my body in different ways, and I kind of got into the well, honestly, to be kind of lame about it, first, let me take it back a little bit because when I was a little bit younger in high school, I got into the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, right?
Yeah.
So they were really big into chakras and they were really big into meditation. And the show
Mm-hmm.
kind of like got my attention with that. And I was like, that's kind of cool. What's that about? Like, and so you know how we do, we start Googling stuff immediately because I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but if someone calls me from a number, I don't know. I Google that number like
Oh, every time. Like
immediately.
while they're actively calling, I'll just,
That's it.
push it off to the side and like, okay, who are you? What area
Exactly.
code is this calling from? Not spam.
So that show got me really big into this idea of spirituality in a really different way. I'd always kind of had this Eastern tilt to my mind, but I really hadn't really thought to explore it. So I did my research. I got all that stuff taken care of. I actually have a tattoo, not from the show, but based off of the show in terms of just getting the chakras put on my body. It was important.
Yeah.
So later on down the line, I graduated college in 2012, came back home, was working a job. And then actually because of like some really weird circumstances, I actually lost that job. I got fired. So I was trying to figure out what to do with myself while I was looking for a job. And being a young person who's just got out of college, you're trying to find your way in life honestly, I was really lost. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I just spent a lot of time home on on Instagram, really. And there was an influencer. I can say her name. Her name's Laura Sakura. Some people might be familiar with her.
Yeah.
She's a really cool lady. I've had a couple of conversations with her. But she was doing like a challenge, and a friend of mine happened to be doing the challenge as well. And the first pose that I saw them do was a forearm stand. It was scorpion. And I was like, oh man, that's super cool. I'm athletic. I can do that, right? So I do it, right? And I take the picture, but like I'm like smashed on my face like this, and my legs are over my head. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm doing so cool. And it got that hunger in me I got competitive about it, right? So like every day I would come back and without really knowing what I was doing, I would spend hours trying to nail the perfect picture. Well, eventually I got curious enough to be like, you know what? Like I'm clearly not doing this right. How can I go about it? I mean, some of the poses were really easy and some of them were very difficult, but how can I go about this and make it work for me, right? And that's what I did. I started researching, and I built a home practice, and it took me 3.5 years to actually like step into a studio.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I was very nervous, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't familiar to me. I could walk out on a pool deck and see, as many people as I wanted, and I wouldn't be worried about it. But this was a new space for me, and this was like this new calling that I enjoyed, and it was such a because I felt like I taught myself. I was like, it's me. I gotta keep it to me, right?
Right.
And after that, I felt like I honestly had fallen in love when I was doing the research, and I'd gone to that class, and I was like, man, this is something that will always beat me. You know what I mean? Because it's me against me, and I can't ever seem to win. Right? I may have a class that was easier than the last time, but it could be later that week, and I get my butt kicked again, and I'm like, dang man, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
what I mean? It was a very humbling experience to feel like I have control, but there's a level that I don't have control over. And the only way to figure out how to get that control is to come back to the mat and do it again. So that's like how I got into yoga. Now, my story to become a teacher is kind of wild, but it's also really cool, and it's probably and I have my mentor. Her name is Christy, and I absolutely love her. And I told her today, I was like, look, like I'm because I'm subbing her class tomorrow. And she told me, she was like, look, I owe you one. I'm like, no, 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 no. You don't owe me nothing, right? Like, you got me into this game. Trust me, I owe you everything, right?
Yeah.
And so the story goes, I had an old Instagram page. It used to be called the Lone Star Yogi because, everybody was big into branding back then. So now I just my name, whatever.
I think that's when I found you under. Yeah.
Probably, yeah. So I just use my name now. And some people may have known that account from a long time ago because I was actually pretty prominent on there. Not to toot my own horn, but now these days I kind of did away with that page because of some other stuff. But originally, when I was working at the facility, this gym called Lifetime Fitness out in Plano, and it's where, well, I'm located in Allen, but the gym is in Plano, not too far away from each other. If you are familiar with the North Texas area,
Yeah.
my uh, well, she wasn't my boss, but my mentor, who's now my mentor, came to me and was just like, "Look, I came across your Instagram page, and I didn't know you were a yogi. I'm actually really interested. Can you just come to my class and take my class a couple of times?" So I went, and I showed out, I guess, and just did my thing and enjoyed myself, and just really loved every moment that I was having in there because she was taking me to places that I hadn't even explored in other classes. So I was very much taken aback by that. She's like, "Look, you'd be a great instructor," and I'm like, "Really, me?" She's like, "Yeah, trust me, right?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I was working at that gym, and I was a swim team coach, and she just happened to see me coaching, and she was like, "Look, you have this ability to reach out to people, right? You're
Hmm.
you're helping the youth, right? And you teach adults how to swim as well. You can do this." And so I kind of sat on it, and I was like, "Look, I don't have the money for the training. I just can't afford to drop. I think it was something like 3 grand or something like that at the time."
Yeah, that's a big reality for a lot of people.
Right. And it's a barrier. And I remember I tried to do it before, and there was some class, and I'm a person that's you get what you pay for type of person. And I'd seen
Hmm.
trainings that were like $400, $500. And I'm like, that don't really seem like I'm gonna get much out of that.
Yeah.
And so I told them, like, look, Chrissy, I just don't have the money to do this. And she said, don't worry, I'll figure it out. She comes back a week later. She grabs the GM, and the GM, I'm going to say his name too. Andy Valderas was our GM at the time, and we were getting a new GM. His name is Corey Hay. They all three of them roundtabled it and talked it out. They all came up to me, and Christy was like, "Okay, we figured it out." And I'm like, "Figured what out?" "We figured out we're going to get you in this training." Andy begins to speak. He said, "Look, this is what we're going to do. I'm transferring over to Mansfield. Corey's going to take my spot here. What we're going to do is split this in half. My club is going to pay for half, and his club is going to pay for half. Boom. You're going to do this."
That is awesome.
That let me know that I was meant to do this. And I went into it full force with everything that I had. And I never turned back. Like, all I did was I taught classes out in Mansfield for a year, and that's kind of far from where I was living in Richardson at the time. But it was worth it because I got to do something that I didn't have to pay for, but it was just so life changing. The experience in itself completely rewired how I thought about myself. It rewired the world, the way I saw the world, and it totally shifted this energy in me and made me realize, man, there's something. so much deeper to me and other people that we are just not touching yet. And we have to figure out how to do that, especially as people of color. Like
Yeah,
I
100%.
remember, I remember before I became a teacher, I was trying to do these like it wasn't even like a Zoom class, it was like Twitch, right? And I wasn't even like
Yeah.
I wasn't even certified, and I was trying to teach classes because this was like in my head, like I thought this was such a cool thing. Why not share this with friends and family? And I actually got a lot of pushback because they were saying it was pulling them away from God and things like that. And so I had to
Mhm.
kind of figure out, how do I make this work for my community, right? Because
Yeah.
it's hard. Like that is such a huge stop for a lot of people. And I lost some friends because they just couldn't get with it. They would not understand. They're like, you can't do that. Like, no, I can't do this. And that's
That's
fine.
extremely relatable.
Right. And it's so, and I hate that it is that way, but at the same time, you can't open the door for everybody. Some people have to open the door themselves. Most people have to open the door themselves.
Yeah.
So that's like the long, short version of my intro to yoga story, right? So
That's
it's
amazing. That is a really amazing story. Like you have people having your back from the jump, and that is amazing. It's not often people get an opportunity like that because I had to get a second job to pay for
right. And
like that stuff
wow,
was not cheap.
I
But
always feel bad for when I say that because people are like,
no,
what?
I'm excited because I love when
Right?
stuff like that happens because it needs to happen more. I
Absolutely.
understand, on a, we're in America. This is a
Right.
business, and
Of
folks have
course.
to make money. And in this country, time is money,
Yes.
and teacher trainings are a big amount of time. So I expect someone to need to get paid for all that time you're putting into teaching me ancient, information. So I get that, but it's still one of those things where it's like, does it have to be as high as it is? I don't think so. But
Absolutely.
I still think it's fair to compensate people. But
Absolutely.
anytime that I hear about somebody getting it for free or a deep ass discount, hell yes.
Hmm.
Hell yes. Especially when
Absolutely.
they're black and a black man.
For
Because
sure.
we need more black men in the yoga space.
He was a Hispanic man, and he recognized that immediately. He's like, look, we know what you can do for us in the aquatics area. We've seen you. We've seen you for 2 years now. You've completely changed how that works over there. What
Nice.
we need you to do now is bring something different to this department. And I understood immediately what he was talking about. Like we had that connection. I was like,
Yes.
and I realized, when you walk into a space, especially being a person of color, when you see the staff, me personally, what are you looking
The
for?
first thing I look for is who's looking like me.
Exactly. Where's the diversity, right?
Yes.
Even if they have brown on their skin, even if they're not a black person, look, you're brown, I will take it. You're close enough.
Yes.
That's good. I'm cool. Let's do this, right? Because
Absolutely.
it has to we want to draw people in, and I understood that when I walked in the wall to the back in the yoga studio. All you see, unfortunately, like I don't mean to say this about my coworkers, they're all their white faces. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that can be very intimidating for someone who looks like us, and they step into this place where, yeah, you got to have a little bit of money to be in here, but at the same time you also still want to see people that look like you, because it's not like there aren't black people with a little bit of money, right? So
Exactly. Because I'm wanting to ask, when did you teach there? Because I did have it's the one in Plano off of Legacy, is it?
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
I had a membership there for at least a year or so back in like 2015,
yeah, you're
2016.
before me. You're before me.
Okay.
That's what
I
you missed.
figured because
Yeah.
I'm like, there was no one there. There was one woman, a Russian woman, who taught an ashtanga class that I
Yeah.
really loved.
He's
And I
awesome.
will always come to her class. And that she was the only person I went to because I felt comfortable with her. Full A,
Yeah.
she taught ashtanga, and that was what I was really into at the time.
Yep.
But she just had such a great energy. And
She,
I took a couple other classes that I was just kind of like, I'm good on this. I'll just stick with her. But
no, she's
it
great.
yeah, but that membership was so pricey, even with the company that I was working for covering a majority of our membership. It's still like almost $100 a month. And I'm like, I just moved here. I got all these bills and relocation things to pay for. I can't swing this every month. And I'm only taking one class a week. And that's all I
Right,
wanted to be there for was the yoga. Cause
right.
I'm a yoga snob, I guess. I don't working out is I'm slowly getting back into it.
Look, I do. So, see, my background, I have to work out. So
Yeah.
it's like I have to pick my day, I have to pick and choose because it's like, okay, well, today do I go work out or do I go hit my mat? Like, how do I do
Mm-hmm.
this? Like, so what I've figured out is like, all right, so what do all these big dogs do? They work out every day, right? So we got to
Yeah.
do this every single day. Okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll work out. Tuesday, Thursday, we'll hit the mat. Saturday, we're teaching classes. You know what I mean? Like we just keep building it out in our brain.
Yeah.
It all works out that way. And I think that's kind of the biggest part about it is making the time and because it's something new and it's so the word I'm looking for is it's not difficult. It's so it just wraps you in what you're doing, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
so encompassing that sometimes you kind of forget, oh, you're trying to listen for somebody and you're thinking it's like Twister, right hand blue, left hand yellow, and you're like, oh, wait, hold up, what am I supposed to do? So you get in that zone, and when you finally hit that state where like you know where it's going and you start flowing on your own, and that's the thing about Ashtanga is like there's no music,
Mm-hmm.
straight traditional Ashtanga, and it's building up. All this is just building up, and I love Ashtanga because it's clearly what we're based in, what I'm based in too.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like walking into a room quiet, nothing but you, your breath, and everybody else breathing around you and sweating. I know it sounds crazy to those that don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, if you do it right, and then at the beginning and end of class you get a couple of chants going, woo, I'm
Mm.
telling you, you start to feel that shift in your body. You're like, oh, something's good's happening here.
It's
Oh,
powerful.
it is.
It's so powerful, but it's really an all-encompassing experience. And I know Ashtanga is not, everyone's cup of tea, but I'm like, if you ever get the chance to take a Mysore class, it's so cool to experience because it's just you and your mat. And occasionally your instructor to guide you.
Right.
Like the place that I got my 200 hour, they mostly are Ashtangis, and they offered a biweekly Mysore class and a couple guided Ashtanga classes just for those that wanted to get familiar with the sequences. But they had these note cards that were super helpful with all of the postures for primary and secondary series.
Yeah.
And you could come into Mysore like, I've never done this before, and they'll be like, all right, I'm going to hand you this card and I'm definitely going to focus on you, but I do have to bop around to everybody else
For
here,
sure.
but I'm going to help you with this. But it's still just so it's a liberating experience because you're you're resting in your own power and strength. And
100%.
it's so nice. And then you have the support of everyone else, because I know it can be intimidating, but it feels more supportive than anything. Because even though there's somebody back there with their leg behind their head, it's
Look,
it's still like, that's damn cool. I know I'm not doing that, but you know what? That's empowering. Let me get back
right?
to this, because you know what? I shouldn't be struggling earlier, thinking that I'm struggling this hard. No, if they can do that, I can do this.
I can at
It's
least,
so
yeah,
empowering.
I'll
Yeah.
work my way in there, right?
Yes. It's like I might be able to get maybe like knee to shoulder, but that's
Look, and that's like the big thing for everybody, right? That's such the blockage, right? When you talk to anyone, no matter who it is, if they've never done yoga, oh, I'm not flexible, I can't do that stuff. And it's like, well, hold up, man, don't,
that's why you
don't worry
come
about,
here.
yeah, don't worry about none of that. That was everybody's trying to get out of my class, come into my class speech. I'm like, that ain't
Uh-huh.
nothing. Come on. I don't care
What I
about
like
that.
to say is like, did you go into kindergarten knowing how to read?
Right. Oh. And if
Okay,
you did,
then.
you cheated
If
the
you
system. Good for
thank you.
you.
Like, and if you knew how to read already, then you had a teacher already teaching you these things.
Right,
You
right.
don't
So
you don't know what you don't know.
every time you walk into the studio, I promise you, you will leave a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched people come to my class, and you have too. You see their first class, and then you see them just progress week after week, month after month, and then all of a sudden they start popping off some big stuff, and you're like, "Whoa, where
Man.
did that come from?"
And it's just
It's
all
cool.
about consistency, just
It is.
staying committed to the practice.
I'm really big on telling people, look, even if you don't see me again, even if you don't see anybody else in this room again, y'all are together. They
Yep.
are a part of you. You're a part of them. You can't let it go, even if you tried. It's like a bad boyfriend or girlfriend. You can't get rid of it, right? Like they're with
Yep.
you forever, right? So just get over it. Get over yourself and just have fun. Just have fun, right?
Oh my
We get really
goodness.
stuck. Everybody gets stuffy in their practice. Me too. I do too. I get really stuffy in my practice sometimes, and
Yeah.
then I have to. What I like to do now is if I take a class, if I take like a vinyasa or something like that, first thing I'm going to go for is I'm going to try and see how long I can hold the handstand, right? And if I fall, right, I'm going to fall nasty. I want to fall nasty to where everybody's like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm good. I want to laugh at myself real quick so I can
Oh my
kind of
God.
get out of the way. Hey, look, there's only one way to do it. You have to just do it. You got to get out of your own head and just be present, enjoy the moment. That's how it should be.
Oh, definitely. Gosh, I'm having so much fun already. But
Mm,
I did want to ask about your teacher training experience. What was
sure.
that like for you?
It couldn't have happened at a better time. Like my life at that point in time, like yoga hits me in the most tumultuous times of my life, but it also helps me get through it. Right. So I get that beautiful lesson. So months before, right, they're telling me, hey, you can be a part of the training. We sign up for the training. I get my books, all that stuff starts. My personal life starts falling apart a little bit. And with everything that was going on with my ex, and I'm trying to deal with things with I'm trying to get my daughter, I'm trying to get custody of my daughter, all this type of crazy stuff, right? So all that stuff kind of starts to work itself out, and I start training. And of course, I'm deeply emotional at this time. Like I had a horrible breakup. Like I'm trying to work this stuff out for my kid, and I'm not doing well mentally, and I know I'm not doing well. So I walk into this space open minded. I'm excited. And everything about that training spoke to me. Absolutely everything from speaking about the Patanjali and codifying the freak, codifying everything that we know about yoga right now.
Mm.
It hit me. And I just started to like understand there has to be, this is rooted so deep that there are these groups of people. And now that we're starting to see this even pop up in anthropology, in science, where they're uncovering these things and they're learning, hey, we've been around a lot longer than we thought we were. And we
Mm-hmm.
are much more connected to the earth and our spirit than we thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
I made that connection pretty quick then. And I always tell everyone about this. This was a truly deeply, it opened me up to recognizing as a Black man, it's okay to have feelings. It was so hard to recognize that. I cannot tell you how many times I cried during my YTT. I cannot tell you how many times people just gave me a hug. I cried during sessions where we're taking classes. Like it was just hitting all over the place. But the most important part of this training, and I'm so surprised that nobody has done it since, and this lets me know that my training was for me. It was totally meant for me. We did this exercise, and maybe you've heard of it. It's called the stare. And what you do is you and a partner. So let's say in this situation, Tierney, it's me and you. We're
Mm-hmm.
sitting in front of each other, right? Now we don't talk. We look into each other's eyes. I know that sounds romantic and all that. We look into each other's eyes for 3 to 5 minutes. You can blink. You can do whatever you want. You just cannot talk for 3 to 5 minutes. You look at each other dead in the eyes for 3 to 5 minutes. I did this with a friend of mine named Candace, and I feel like me and her, we learned so much about each other in those 3 to 5 minutes that nobody else will understand. It was such an you could see their past, you could feel their energy of hurt, you could feel their energy of excitement, what made them happy, what made them
Mm-hmm.
sad. It was the most inspiring thing that I've ever done since, and I've always tried to do it since. But every time I ask people, they get scared because the idea of staring at somebody for 3 minutes
It's a
is
long
really
time.
daunting. It is daunting, and I've tried it with partners, and it doesn't with girlfriends. It does not work. They don't want to do. But that exercise taught me something. It's like, okay, we've heard the saying, windows are soul, or eyes are windows to the soul, right?
Oh yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And I deeply encourage anyone, if you can manage to get your partner to sit down for 3 to 5 minutes, just do it. Stare each other in the eyes for 3 minutes. And when it's over, talk about what you saw. Just talk about it. If you saw nothing, say you saw nothing. It's fine. There's no right or wrong answer. You just go with what you saw, what you felt. And when I had that moment, and what she said to me, everything was on the money. Everything that she would say,
Mm.
and I remember tears coming out of my eyes. And me and Candace have this great friendship to this day. As a matter of fact, we lost a little bit of touch for a little bit, but we reconnected recently, and we are so tight. And I'm so thankful for that because I think we get each other in a way that nobody else will on this earth right
Oh
now,
yeah.
right? So that experience coupled with really a great mentor in Christy and my buddy Dalton leading us, and Tanya, of course. Shout out to Tanya if you're out there in Minnesota. um, because of that, I felt like this growth as a man because I learned how to become sensitive and be okay with being sensitive, and I also learned that I'm masculine in my femininity and that it's good to play both roles, not just one or the other, right? Playing the
Yes.
opposites of that. Like I always, you maybe as kids you were into the yin and yang, like I was heavy into the yin and
Yeah.
yang. Maybe it was like a '90s kid thing. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't either. I really wouldn't
The
because there was
sign
just
was
like,
all over the place. Most of
I
us
love
didn't
it.
know what it meant, but it was all
Exactly.
over the place.
Exactly. And I did martial arts, so I had an idea, but it was such a high concept that it just flew over my head as a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it kind of rolled over as an adult and I got it. And I think so much can change when you are put in a situation where you're under stress and you're looking for a way out and you're looking for a healthy way to do it. Well, what do? Instead of turning outward and pushing that out, you turn inward. And that's what I've learned several times over now is anytime I have that moment, yoga or my spirituality kicks in and says, hey man, like pull yourself back, own your power. You need to just figure you out, and then you can proceed into what you need to do next. Which was very difficult to figure out at first. And once you figure it out, though, you kind of start to get a better feel for how to do it. Um,
Hmm.
what ends up happening though is when you get disconnected from that, that's when it becomes a bit scary. And I've seen that happen for some people. That's scary.
Oh, definitely. I mean, even the when you were talking about the stare, I got scared because
Mm-hmm.
eye contact for me is difficult. And,
It is.
adding in these elements that you're not accustomed to,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff is scary. And feelings are a big, scary thing for a lot of people,
Absolutely.
especially the way that we're socialized. And especially as we're socialized as Black people, but Black men for sure. Oh my goodness.
Look, my friends are pretty multicultural, but my black friends they had an understanding of what I was trying to discover about myself, right?
Yeah.
And so once I discovered it, I pushed it out to them that it's cool to just have this. Like none of us, and y'all can probably hear the way I talk. I'm not like gangster or none of that stuff. Like I like to rap like a gangster when the music comes on for sure, because that's just how I get down. But like I think what we understood and what I did understand when I do have friends that are quote unquote hood, and I would just come to them and say, "Yo, like it's you're holding on to something. Like you gotta let it out. Like whatever that anger is, you got to figure out what that is."
Yes.
And I figured out what that was for me, and like it's not even about being black for people of our generation and generations before and after. If you are missing a parent in your life, that is usually a huge contributing factor to what is actually happening up here the rest of your life.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm gonna share a quick story with me personally that I have no problem sharing the story. I share it with everybody if they want to listen to it. I got really curious about my father because he was not in my life, but I bugged my mom about it forever. And I was like, yo, what's going on? How can I meet this man? Can I talk to him? Can I write him a card? Like anything. And she just said, I don't think you want to do that. And I would try to figure out why she would say that. And it didn't make sense to me. Well, finally, I guess she just had enough and she's like, fine. She gave me his number. I think I was 11 at the time. And I called him. And my stepmom picks up. She says, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, can I speak to Calvin? Cool. Okay, cool. Let me go get him. She gives the phone to Calvin. He answers. He says, hello, this is Calvin. And I said, hey, this is Justin. Everybody knows my last name at this point. It's Justin. Hi, I'm Levita's son. I'm your son. And it got kind of quiet for a sec. And he said, can you say that again? And I said, and I repeated. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. You must have the wrong number. Now that's some cold-blooded shit to say to your son on the phone. That's some pretty cold-blooded shit to say to somebody.
Mm.
And as a young child, I became unglued after that. I was crying, tears in my eyes, and I said, I'm sorry. I apologize to this man. And I hung up the
Mm.
phone
Oh my
and I
goodness.
called my mom and I'm bawling my eyes out. And she said, I told you, like any mom would say, right? But of course, she came home and made me feel better. But something that clicked in my mind from that point on was, I'm going to make you miss me, right? Everything
Hmm.
I did was to show him what he was missing out on. The fact of the matter is, if he wanted to be there, he would have been there. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Like I could have become, the world's first. I could have been out in the Olympics, winning all kinds of medals, swimming and all that stuff, and it would have never mattered to him unless I started making big dollars, of course.
Hmm.
Right. So what I had to understand, and it took me a long time to figure this out, was once you can forgive him for what he said, you can move forward. So I forgave him. Maybe I was 25. I was just about to have my daughter. I had my daughter at 26. Yeah. So I was just about to have my daughter and I was walking into fatherhood and I understood I need to let this go because
Yeah.
how I raise my daughter is how he was with me will doesn't affect how I raise my daughter because I've already proven I'm already here. I'm a better man than
Hmm.
he is, right?
Big
And
time.
it's so hard for all black men. It's hard for men, women to just get over, to just find it. Like I had this fear of rejection. I had this fear of not being good enough,
Same.
right? Right? You know what that feeling was like, right? And
Yes.
it infests everything that you do in life. You can't escape it. Like, you're at school and you see some people doing something, you're like, what the fuck? I can do that too. Like, why are they so popular? I'm popular. I'm smart. I know all that stuff, right? Like, I know the
Yes.
I know all the words. I know how to dance, right? And
Let
for
me
me,
join all the clubs because I can do it all.
right,
Why
and
not?
me and me having this ability to, I went to a private school growing up, and then in high school, the lady that was helping sponsor me, she passed on, so I had to go to a public school because we couldn't afford it anymore. But
Yeah.
high school was really cool and it was predominantly black. So now I went from this predominantly white area and I'm in this black area. And now people are making fun of how I talk, how I dress. And I'm thinking, wow, what? Like I was the cool kid just last year. Yeah, you get it, right?
Yeah.
I was the cool kid. Like I was the cool kid just last year. Everybody wanted to hang out with Justin. I was the most athletic. I was the funniest. I was, like it didn't make any sense. And once I kind of found my groove and I found my people, it took me a second to realize later on down the line that, man, I was holding on to that then. Like I felt so bad anytime would talk about how I talked or they would call me Oreo and things like that, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Right? So like I, we both built that thick skin because we heard it so much to where eventually it's like whatever, who cares?
Hmm.
And you also found a response to it and you found a way to make them respect you. That was the most important
Hmm.
part. And once I realized I all they want is for me to find a way to make them respect me, I kind of let that fear, that rejection go in that area. But it was still in relationships, right? With girlfriends I
Oh
had,
yeah.
best friends, right? Like it's one of those things that just sticks with you. and it's so hard to pull off. I'm still dealing with it now sometimes, right? You get triggered too. I'm sure you hear it and you're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like that's not
Yeah, like hold the horses now. You don't
right.
do that no more. Don't do that.
Exactly. And you have to pull yourself back so hard because it's so difficult to recognize that you're reacting to it's not 32-year-old Justin reacting now. It's it's 11-year-old Justin reacting, right? And he's
Hmm.
scared and he doesn't want you to let him go, even though 32-year-old Justin is like, get the fuck out of here, right? Go away, please. Um, and I think that's really important. So my training, to wrap it all back together, like was so powerful, and it helped me recognize that, and it helped me understand that there's so much that has happened in my life that makes me who I am today, and I have to embrace that.
Oh
And
yeah.
not only embrace that, I have to forgive those that did me wrong, forgive myself for allowing that to happen, and forgive, and just not even forgive, but spread who I am. And I know very much who I am now. It's taken a long time, but I figured it out, right? That was, yeah. My soapbox is coming
Man.
down,
No,
everybody.
that's exactly what I'm looking for with all of this. Tell your story because
Yeah,
you're
legit.
inspiring me right now. So I know you're going to inspire somebody else. A lot of what you said, I really resonate with, down to, the absent parent thing. Um, my father had, let's see, I always knew who he was,
Right.
but he was inconsistent with his presence
Mm,
and very dishonest. So my mother did the best she could to prepare us for that. Like she didn't necessarily not want to or want to keep us from him, but
right,
she definitely wanted to protect us from his inconsistency. So it was always a weird, responsibility for her. But us, knowing who he was, we're like, well, we want to go see him and he not show or something like that, or
right,
say he's coming to pick us up and then not come. And then it just got to a point where I built a strong amount of resentment for the man. And it's to the point now where I realized that a lot of what I did growing up was to spite him. Like,
right.
look at who I became because you weren't there, or in spite of your absence. Look who I
Mm-hmm.
became without your help. Look who I am. Look what I've done without you. I didn't need you. So look
Right,
at there. But
right,
then I
right. You're
then
like,
I realized I'm like,
bam.
you're not living your life for yourself, Tierney.
Exactly.
You're still living it for someone else. Um, and that was major. And that those are things that definitely came up for me in my own training. Because also my training had a lot of stuff going on. I was couch surfing at my sister's house because I had just broken up with my ex, who I had an apartment with, and he moved to another state, and I was still there. And like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but I knew I needed to get out of. I'm from Iowa, so I needed to get out of Iowa.
Oh, wait,
And
time out.
yeah, that's when you said the Oreo thing. I'm like, I get it. That's
Oh,
my
man,
entire
for
existence
sure, for
because
sure.
that's all
Yeah, there's not a lot
I
going on.
existed in a predominantly white space all the
For sure,
time.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So when all that was going down, I was in a really transitional space, and I'm like, okay, well, fine, I'll take the teacher training because I feel like this was a move for me to make, because I also had people saying, I think you'd be a great teacher. And I'm like, well, you know what? I went to college for it. Because I thought I was going to be an elementary education teacher. And I'm like,
Well,
yeah,
I
I
get
could at least get some use out of the degree. Sure, why not? I love yoga and I want to, see more Black people doing it. And I think that starts with leading by example. So I'd love to be the example. But then all of that stuff was happening. My grandmother passed away on my father's side. So having to reconcile that disconnect with that family. And then it's just so much going on within those. How long was the training? I think we were in there for about 4 months.
Mhm.
And it was just like I cried every weekend that we met.
I
Like,
get you.
gosh, like
Like,
can you
almost.
let up on me a little bit? But it was so necessary because it was almost like I needed to just have all of that stuff kind of take me out of all of those layers that I had built to
Right.
protect myself, and I was really able to dig deep into who I am at my core. And I'm still learning all of that stuff to this day because I'm 36 now, and we build a lot of layers within that time. And even when you're working to break that stuff down, there's still things happening that may, build the wall up a little more, or reinforce something. So it's a constant work. But man, if it wasn't for training, I don't know where I'd be.
I often tell myself, I think I probably would have had some sort of mental break at some point, to be quite honest, because
Definitely.
the, the, my coping mechanisms were, I mean, I can be straight up about it. My coping mechanisms were getting as high as I possibly could and sleeping. That's it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and working out, right? So if I wasn't working out, I was super duper stoned. And if I wasn't super duper stoned, I was definitely asleep. So, like, there was only so many things that I was doing. I was not a productive member of society. I
Yeah.
just wasn't very happy with myself. And now that we're in this space of, oh Lord, 6, almost 7 years later, right? Like, we're doing much better, but I also understand, especially after leaving my last relationship just recently, like, you recognize, as the people that we are, we give a lot, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying anybody else there that's not a teacher does not give themselves to their partner. I'm sure you do. But what I mean is, on my level, I learned that I wanted to please and I wanted to not be rejected so much that I let this person basically just copy paste themselves right over the top, right?
Yeah.
And things that I wouldn't normally do, I started doing. I started saying, I started pushing friends away. I started alienating my mom of all people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was like this really deep, weird place to be because I'd unrooted myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? It took me snapping back into reality, coming back to my mat and pushing all of that away to recognize, okay, we have an idea of what to do. We've always had this idea of what to do. Now, how do we execute it in a way that it actually sticks with us? Because it's easy to fall out of the routine, right? You start the routine, and let's say, not, I wouldn't even say month 3. I would say month like 6, 7, when it's become super duper easy for you, and you're like, I can skip today. I'll do it tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? And then tomorrow becomes tomorrow, 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 until eventually you never do it again, right?
Yep.
And that almost happened with me getting on my mat. I was still teaching, but I had disconnected from the mat. I was still working out. I wasn't stopping that. But when I stopped hitting my mat, when I even pulled back on my meditation. Like, I was teaching from some weird area in my life. And I'm so sorry for anybody that came to those classes because they were, I know, looking back on, they were dark classes because
I
I
know
was
what
in a
you
dark
mean.
space. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
when your head wasn't in a good spot, you teach. You may feel like you're purging yourself, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you're connecting. But some people, it's way too heavy of a message, right? Because you're hitting them, you're beating them over the head with it. And
Yeah.
I recognize that. I recognize that. And it's okay. You know, we have our traumas, we work through them. And I'm going to tell it like this. I thought I was going to be an international trial lawyer working for the International Criminal Court. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. And I had a very great conversation with someone who was in law school at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She walked up to me and asked me a very quick, easy moral question as we sat in Starbucks. She said, "Look, Justin, like, I'm gonna ask you straight up. You want to do criminal law? You have no interest in intellectual property, anything like that? Nothing? No, no. Okay. If can you prosecute someone that you know is innocent? Very simple question. No, I can't do that. Okay, cool. Can you defend someone you know is guilty? No. Then you might need to find a different game, my friend, because before you ever get to the spot where you know there's this person is guilty and how difficult it will be to actually put something on this person because war crimes are almost impossible to prove, this is going to take most of your life
Oh
is
yeah.
doing doing this, working as like an attorney, getting to a U.S. attorney, then taking it up to the next level. It's going to take most of your life. And are you
Mhm.
committed to having that moral shift so much within you? And the
Mm.
answer was no. It was very simple. And so I deeply encourage anyone to have a conversation with yourself. What are your morals? And what are your goals, right? Do they
Yes.
actually line up? Because we like to live life pleasing others. My mom works in law, so I was like, I thought this is the perfect avenue. She's gonna love it. I'm gonna love it because I was privy to that stuff. And I learned, no, that's not for me, man. It's not
At
for me at all.
all.
At all. You know, so
Yes.
I
I
hope
think
I
it's
hope
a
everybody figures that
Yeah, because I always think it's really important to remind people of that when I'm in class. It's like, understand your why for everything. Like, understand why you do anything that you do each day, what decisions you make based on or down to the clothes you wear, the underwear you done picked out, the shoes that go with this outfit. Like,
out.
why? Understand the reason why. And then when it comes to the bigger things, there better be a really strong meaning that means, like, something deep to you rather than just surface level. Oh, because so and so. But what about you?
Right.
What about you? What's
Right.
going on here to bring you to this decision? And that question alone has changed a lot for me in my own life, and I have to constantly remind myself of it with everything. It's like, why are you doing this, Tyranny? What's the reason? And
Exactly.
is it you making this decision, or is it someone else imposing themselves on this decision? And
That
not even they don't even have to be aware that they're imposing themselves on it. It can be me
ooh,
imposing them in it because I'm doing it for them. And it's like,
I hope
no.
everybody heard what you just said because that is some real knowledge bomb right there. I cannot tell you, like I just mentioned, I was in a relationship where I felt like somebody had just copy pasted themselves on top of me and they
Mm-hmm.
imposed their entire will on me. And as a reaction, you start to like have moments where you just act out and you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And
Completely
then all
not
of a
even
sudden,
recognizing yourself anymore.
yeah. And then you're like, okay. And then now that you've done that with this person, now they see you as that person. And that doesn't change anymore. That's who you are to
Mm-hmm.
them, period. Because you jumped out of your face a couple of times, or now you've acted out of character, completely made an ass of yourself for other people, right? Now you're in a space where you've lost respect, you've lost
Mm-hmm.
trust. There's nothing anymore. You're holding on to a shell of what you thought it was, right?
Yeah.
And in any type of situation, when you have that and you become uprooted and you lose all of your power, you don't understand your why anymore. I'm gonna tell you like this: just last year, as I was with this person, I was starting to try and maneuver my life around to stop teaching, which was crazy. If I think about that now, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad something in me, something in the universe stopped me from figuring out how to stop this, right?
Yeah.
Because I would just be miserable the rest of my life. And to walk away from that, and if you saw from May of this year to where I am here in September, almost October, is such a huge jump, right? I've went from teaching one class a week to now I'm about to start teaching about six, right? So like
Nice.
it's pretty crazy, and I feel like I'm always busy. I'm always doing something, not to cover up what happened, but because I understood I took myself away from
Mm-hmm.
something. And when you take yourself away from your why, when you figure out your purpose, when you relearn your purpose, you dive back in head first and you go as hard as you possibly can. Because when you get those look, I was reading something today. It said we take our minds for granted because we got it for free,
Yeah.
right? We didn't have to pay for it. The things that we don't have to pay for, we typically take for granted. We don't care much about. And
Yep.
the things that we pay for, we care about. We feel like we've attached some value to it. So as we're born into this body and born into this brain that we have, we think to ourselves, okay, cool, I got my brain, I can do whatever I want. But as you get deeper, right, you start to recognize, okay, well, how do I really get what I want out of life? Because I'm not aligned with anything that I'm doing and I'm
Mhm.
not getting the results that I want. Well, my friend, the easiest answer to that is look at yourself, right? Look at yourself.
Yes,
Own
man.
it.
Oh my goodness. Gems are being dropped. I am here for it.
I'm hoping. Look, write it all. Everybody, write it down because trust me, I was writing down stuff earlier today. Not for this necessarily, but because I just like to take that time, right? To just even working in corporate America, you got to take that time, right? You got to figure out 5, 10 minutes, lunch break, whatever. Just hear something else, look
Yes.
at something else, understand that how you view the world is not how the rest of the world views it, right?
Mm-mm.
And that's a hard place, especially for people of color, because we're not looking for handouts necessarily. We're looking to be understood.
Yes.
And it feels like a majority of the world does not wish to understand us. They labeled us all thousands of years ago as brutes, as, terrifying people, quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly. And because we were conquerors and no one could conquer our land, if you do your research. So just throwing that out there. But that's how we kind of it's been gone all the way out throughout history. And if you're a person that is not of color and you find yourself in that place where you are desperate and looking for an understanding of how to take the next step in your life, like look at yourself and see and start making a list of what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
What's your why? Well, if you can figure out what you want and you can figure out why you want it, you can figure out how to get it, right?
Oh yeah.
Easy. That's the easy part, right? So
Big time. You gleaned over this for a second. You said you work in the corporate field. What do you do?
so I used to work in physical therapy, so it's kind of weird that I went from that, but now I actually do cybersecurity for a company. I can't quite drop the name because we work with some contracts and all that stuff. But
Nope.
you know my name, so that's good enough. You can find me.
No,
I'm
I
sure.
was just gonna ask how you end up juggling it with. You said you're teaching 6 classes a week now.
Yes, all of them are after work. So I I used to have Sunday as my off day, but I no longer do. Well, I teach early enough, so it's really an off day. I think of it as an off day.
You're sounding too much like me right now, and I'm gonna tell you right now: give yourself the off day.
I know. So the way it hasn't hit, it's gonna hit 6 in, oh shit, November. Okay. I was like, I got a little bit of time. I had to think about, I was like, wait, is it next week? No.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. Honestly, is like finding that time. So like when we first scheduled things, I was like, yo, like we gotta switch this. Like I can't do it. I got a sport thing going on. Right. Like I was in full blown like, oh, this is gonna take way too long for me to do this.
Yeah.
So the way I balance, I think of it as a healthy balance because I do have some downtime during my job. And when I'm not working with anybody's system or anything like that, I'm on YouTube. I'm listening to audiobooks. I'm researching. I'm spending time diving into myself. And sometimes I've recognized I've gone down a rabbit hole, and I'm like, I'm not doing work. Let's get back to work. Uh, and I think the best part about it for me is that it's a balance. I get to be in front of a computer. I don't have to talk to people very much if I don't want to,
Nice.
which it has its perks. And after, right, and especially when I'm doing all that spiritual stuff, it's very nice because I have a whiteboard in my desk, and I just turn and write everything down, right, and I just put it there, and I leave it there as a message to myself. And I've had coworkers come up to the office and look at it. They're like, "What's all this stuff about?" And I just say, "Just read it and see if you don't come away with some information." No, just
Yeah.
read it. And for me, having that 8 to 5 is cool because I said this to my friend earlier this week. I don't have someone financing my life to where I can just teach, right?
Yes.
And I think you might understand that.
Mm-hmm.
There are I got to be very careful how I say this. There is an enclave of people in the community that don't that's strictly their life. All they do is teach. And I'm very happy for them and I'm proud of them and I appreciate them because they have an ability to do something I don't. I wish I did. I tried it and I was broke I was real broke.
No, that's literally where I am right now.
it's 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 hard.
It's
I commend you. I
It's
commend.
like it's a 2-year long experiment that I am wondering if I've let it run maybe a year too long. But
Yeah,
the pandemic kind of stretched out a lot.
it kind of stretch that out, right?
Yeah,
So
so
it's cool. Um,
but yeah, I'm looking for jobs right now. So I'm
well,
like
there
being
you go.
completely
Yeah,
transparent and honest. I'm looking for jobs right now because I've
Nichols.
acquired a few more classes. Because well, briefly about me, was working for an entity where I was teaching an insane amount of classes a week,
Mm,
and also their lead teacher. So I was managing the teachers as well. Um, yeah, it was insane. A ridiculous amount of classes every week, and I was teaching at multiple places too. So had a bulk of it there, then a couple of them smattered here and there. And I don't think I had a day off for a good several months. Um, and I got burnt out, and there
mhm.
were, issues with personnel that happened, and I had to evacuate because a, they were causing me health problems, and B, I did not want to put myself in a position where I would lash out on someone because
I get
that's out that's
that.
taking me outside my character, and
Absolutely.
I'm not that person. So it's like, okay, let me go ahead and exit stage left, but that left me with a giant void of time because I'm like, well, I dedicated all this time to this one space. Now all of that is gone, so for the last few months, I've been like, what's happening right now? I
Mm,
don't even know. And I've just kind of been in this limbo space, but also dealing with the trauma of that space, almost finding its way into my ability to want to even teach for another studio space. So having to mend that, it's been crazy. But
right.
I'm glad to be in a space where I am much more open to going back out to the studio. So I start a new set of classes tomorrow. Yeah, and I've lined up at least 3 different locations that I'll be teaching at now. So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
I'm excited to see it pick up a little bit more, but I need a job. Like
Like
that's just the
bottom
long
line
and
though,
short of it. Bottom line, I still need a job, like at least part-time or something,
yes, yeah,
because I don't want, like just like you, I don't want to go away from teaching completely, but I can't finance my life with just teaching.
right.
And it's because it's been a struggle the entire time. I don't know how I've managed it, but
You
I'm
were you were
grateful. I'm
robbed Peter to pay
grateful.
Paul, and you figured it out.
I'm
Like,
so grateful. I will totally admit that unemployment during COVID was very helpful.
I'll tell you right now. Look, they shut the clinic down. I was like, man, I can't do nothing for a hot
Oh
minute.
my goodness, because they shut down because I was teaching at a few apartment locations,
Mhm.
and every single one of those entities that manage those spaces was like, all right, we're canceling this, we're canceling that. And I'm like, all right, I can be fine with, my gym stuff.
Right.
But then the gyms started closing, and I'm like, well,
I
Patreon, let's go. All
Lord.
right.
Look, there are so many ways to make money, and Patreon is so helpful. But if you don't spend your time on there, you
And
are not.
I think I offered like 3 or 4 classes a week on Patreon, plus like, additional things for people,
Yeah,
with the tiers and
of
everything.
course, of
It was a
course.
lot of work, but it felt good because I had the time to do it. Like, where
Hmm.
was I gonna go? Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Exactly. I'm like, may as well take advantage of this. So I'm grateful for the time to at least give me the opportunity to get into the virtual space because that's something I had wanted to do, but I didn't do it because I'm like, there wasn't money there at the time. So it's like, this is a
Now
lot
there
of
is.
work without very much pay, coming from it. So I don't know if this is the route for me to go, but then it also gave me this. So I'm like, I'm grateful for the quarantine in a
Right.
way. Like, as much as it, threw the world into a tailspin, I'm like, this wouldn't exist without it. Because I wouldn't have had the time to even think about it. Because I would have been running
True.
around Dallas trying to teach.
The best part about the pandemic was that it was like a hard reset for everybody, like socially and spiritually and physically, of course,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I've I cannot tell you how much I learned about myself, but like the job situation is like it's so weird because it the people look tech people, and I love my tech people out there. If you're listening, they are not yogis like whatsoever. Not the ones that I work with anyway.
It's a
Like
rare thing. So when you said that, I was like, a tech yogi. All
yeah, it's really interesting. It's really
right.
interesting. But I also kind of like I say that because it's like, well, I'm really more of like physical therapy slash tech, so I get it
I
on a lot of
found
levels.
my way into this thing, but this is
Yeah,
where my
and
heart resides. Yeah.
I recognized one this cool balance of not having to talk to people, and then when I do interface with people, I seem to have this ability, and I understand how to speak to people without pissing them off now, right? Or or speaking down to them because that's a big thing too. And maybe it is a me thing. It is a me thing that I was working on because I recognize when some people are not quite understanding, I will begin to speak down to them, and that's not something I wanted to continue to do. And so having that to where I'm helping someone, I'm using my yoga patience in this space of working with others that may not be the most tech savvy. And if they are tech savvy, they think they're the smartest person in the room, which happens
Hmm.
to all of us. And then all of a sudden, now when I step away from that, look, my boss is very, very serious. Look, if you're not logging out of your computer by 4:59, there is a problem. Get your ass out of the building. Legit.
You
He
have a
is
great
so
boss.
yes, I do. And I appreciate him for that. Like he told me in our interview, you need to be up and walking toward the door by 5 o'clock. Up at 5. Like
Bravo to
you
that person.
look,
Yes.
I love him. I love him to death for that
Oh,
because it gives me that sense of, okay, this part of my day is done. Whatever the rest of the day I can choose to do, if I'm going to spend some time with my daughter, I'm going to spend some time meditating. I'm going to spend some time, if I want to go take a class, if I want to go, now it's just me teaching all the time. So last week I just went downtown to take a class, and I've never had time to do that. I've never had time to do that.
that's
You know what I mean? Like just
exciting.
thinking outside, and it was
Ah,
cool, so cool. And
yes.
when you get to have cool new experiences and you feel like you found your groove, I'm like, man, I'm feeling like I've been saying it all along. Like ever since the summer, I feel like I've been on this massive vacation of life because I'm enjoying what I do, and it's very easy. I don't feel like I'm struggling to figure out pieces of my life. It's there, and the things that I'm asking for, I'm manifesting because I'm fully in alignment with what I was supposed to be doing, and I believe in myself now. You know what I mean? Like even even as a teacher, even as teachers, and I will yell this to everybody, we became teachers because we have way more issues than you do. I promise you. I don't know why. All the teachers I know, they have some very, very deep seated issues.
Yes.
And we all seem to have become teachers to be real and talk about those issues to help ourselves, but also to help others. And I think that's probably the most beautiful gift of the practice outside
Hmm.
of the breath work, outside of the ashtangas, excuse me, the asanas. I'm thinking ashtanga, of the asanas. It's more about just spreading love. And I love your shirt because
Thanks.
it's the truth. Look, it's the truth. If we all kind of got on the same page, and I know the world's kind of in this really crazy space right now, if we could just get on the same page a little bit, just a tiny bit, we might make a little bit of progress in the right direction. And I think those old ancient civilizations figured something out
Oh
that we did
yeah.
not figure out and are trying to currently figure out. And I fear the same thing that happened to them is probably going to happen to us. Once we actually get it figured out 100%, it's going to be too late and we're going to be gone. So,
Yeah. I mean, the way the world works, I think that it's always going to be this recurring cycle of the same shit, different era, because
yep,
it's all energy being recycled.
exactly.
Like
Exactly.
we're all the same energy, just finding our way back over and over and over again. And if the lessons weren't learned, you're just gonna keep repeating the same
Yep.
stuff. And because there's so many cycles of energy going on, shit's just always gonna
Just
end up getting
going back.
repeated.
I say this and someone's gonna think I'm loony when I say this. Look, I'm being real here, but like I think my what I feel like just from all the things I've read, I feel like honestly, reincarnation is real. I do believe in that. But like you said, you keep coming back, and I think you come back as you. You just kind of have your memory wiped. You're pushed in a different universe. Everything is the same, except you don't remember it. You just
Hmm.
relive the same life. You do it again, and when you do figure it out, then you move on to the next step.
Yep.
Right? You come back as something else, whatever else, somebody else, but you retain that soul and that feeling of, hey, I now have all this, and there's a reason that we're pulled and drawn towards certain things, and we kind of decide to seek that out. Um, some people close that door and they leave it closed, and unfortunately for them, I think they're doomed to repeat the same thing. We hear history, if we don't learn our history, we're doomed to repeat it, and like you said, it just keeps repeating itself because that's it's all energy, right?
Yep.
And if you pay attention to history at all, oh my God, people, look at your history. The
Man.
same shit happens. Every
Over
40
and
years, the
over.
same thing happens repeatedly.
And it's you would think that people would have noticed it with fashion is the one that is the
Big.
glaring red flag on it. Is like fashion
Mhm.
things tend to cycle. So if something as simple as the clothes you wear cycle, what makes you think all this other shit doesn't?
Real shit. Real.
Like, because like,
Very
what is
real.
it now? I think they're into the late '90s, early 2000s trends, and it's
Oh,
just
they're
like
the baggy stuff, and I'm like, oh Lord, I can't handle baggy jeans anymore. Jesus, please.
now I'm a bit of a tomboy, so I'm appreciative of it returning because I like skinny. We're not my thing.
Okay, I'll say
Like
that.
I
I
live
like
in leggings, but if I was, in my other casual stuff, the looser the better. Thank goodness.
I like fitted. I like fitted. It don't have to be skin tight, but if it's there needs to be a look. There just has to be a tiny bit of wiggle room for me. I'm good. If it's like touching my legs, if I'm not working out or teaching class, I don't want it touching my leg.
Oh
So
my goodness,
I get that.
man.
Oh
Oh,
man.
this world
Look, they bring
is.
that Jinko jeans with the chain. We might be in the business now. Hold up.
Now, I don't know if I'll go that far again. Because
Oh,
I'm a short person too, so I got to be realistic here.
oh,
I can't be tripping over
oh,
my clothes that hard.
yeah. Those are some baggy boys right there.
Man, I remember I had a pair, and I think the first couple times that I wore them destroyed them immediately because they were just dragging all over the place because
Mhm.
there was at least a good 3-4 inches of fabric hanging off the back of my shoe.
Everybody had the ratty part of the jeans at the bottom because those jeans were way too baggy.
Because like everyone else, like they kind of fit like an average where just the hem would get all scuffed up, but no, mine was like 3-4 inches up past
Oh
the hem.
no.
And I'm like, thank
Yo.
goodness I have seamstresses in my family because like, can you please hem these pants? Because all of us are short too. So it's like, hem this, please. I know you got it. I know you got it. Teach me now because I need I need this skill.
Look, I know how to sew is very basic. That's it. I know how to close the
Yeah.
hole, and that's good enough.
Yeah, like I had a really small machine for a second, but I broke it because I didn't know that you can only do certain fabrics on certain machines. But I know
Mhm.
that now, so next time I'm prepared.
You got it under control now. You figured it out.
Man. So, since we're getting close to time, I wanted to ask you what advice you would give to new budding practitioners and teachers.
I'll start with teachers first because practitioners is a little bit. I think that's a little bit deeper, actually.
Yeah.
Um, for new teachers out there, I had, and it's a very, very normal feeling. Don't worry about the number. And what I mean by that is don't worry about the number of participants. It will go up. Be yourself. The first thing I feared was walking into that room, looking at that roster, and praying that it was over 10 people. It was, which, doesn't matter. But I've had classes that just, the format was not for those people. I've had classes where it was just two people, me and two other people.
Mm-hmm.
And while I felt disappointed at first, once you get into it, you start to forget that, and you actually find it to be way more enjoyable because now, as opposed to bopping around the room trying to touch and help 40 some odd people, now you're just focused on two people. And they have such a deep, rich practice that
Yes.
you walk away from it feeling like, damn, like was I was a part of that too. Like, did I do all that too? Like, damn, I feel new.
Yes. That connection gets so much deeper.
and and it's like I don't know how to say it any other way. It's like you guys were in a relationship for 1 hour, for 60 minutes at a time. You guys were completely in love. Y'all got married. Y'all did everything that you could do, and then it was over, right?
Yep.
So, as a new teacher, don't worry about the numbers. And I always say be prepared, but I also say pay attention to your class, right? I'm a super organized person, and it's almost down to I have it down to a science now, where I write everything down. And I got this from my mentor, Christy, because every time she comes to class, she has her paper. I put everything in
Mm-hmm.
my phone, but write it down and start with that. Start with what you think you need to start with. But as class progresses, pay attention to how people are taking what you're giving them. I've I've had to scrap a complete class like after a S1E and be like, oh
Yeah.
shit, none of this is gonna work. These people are not ready for this. Right? And just scrapped it all and had to figure it all out. Oh, and when you do that, you just kind of build out. So continue to write, continue to notate that stuff because it will help you when you are on the periphery of burning out and you just don't have it, or you just crunch and you just don't have it that day. You can just lean on one of those things. I guarantee you, I'm telling on myself right now. I have used a class that I did 2 weeks prior and nobody knew the difference. So people don't pay attention. I'm gonna tell you right now.
At
They're not gonna remember.
all.
They don't care about the poses. They care about you. That's all they really care about. They care about your energy and what you can give them. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. My favorite thing after class is when someone walks up to me and says, that was amazing. That was powerful. Your message really spoke to me. My favorite is when I had someone last week, they said, I'm doing a speech and I'm going to take some of your words and use in that speech. And I was like, what? That's so cool.
That's awesome.
I gave her such a massive hug. I felt so cool about that. I was like, man, that was really cool. I don't care if I never see the actual, if I never hear or see it, it doesn't matter. The fact that you took my words and you used them to give to others, that means a lot to me, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Write, watch your class. Don't worry about the numbers because everything will change and you are a capable instructor just because you got the job first and foremost. And number two, because every time you teach a class, it's a learning experience. And you start to you get into a rhythm and you have certain phrases, right? My regulars, they know my phrases, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
know my setup to other things. And I've almost had to rewire how I say things to throw them off too. And it's hard, but it's fun because you get the challenge of having to relearn yourself. So
Yes.
have fun with that. To my new instructors out there, for new participants, okay, this this is hard because so much of this is all in your head, and most of it is not happening out next. Get out of your head. That's the first part, and be open to the experience. Um, that's like the two most important parts to this for me. As someone who, when I walked into it, I had to come into it with an open mind and just tell myself what I know about yoga is not what may happen,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not going to be sitting here holding. There are classes where you hold poses for an extended amount of time, and that's great. When I went to my first vinyasa class and we only held one pose for a really long time, and that was like way toward the back end of the class. I was like, what the hell is this shit? Um, so don't get overwhelmed by that. Also, oh, this is a big one. Go your speed. The
Yes.
biggest thing I see with any beginner is when I start talking fast, they start moving fast. Don't do that. I preempt you at the beginning of class, and chances are you've probably forgotten. Ooh, let's say 2 minutes into the class. I say stay with your breath. Don't try and follow my words. You will never keep up. It's just not
Yep.
possible, right? You might outpace me later on down the line, maybe a year or two from now. That's fine. Especially after I've given you the first time through and you got it, you're good. But if you don't try and race me. Just stick with your breath. If you do happen to get lost, and if I'm not modeling, watch the people around you. It's okay. They're helpful. I can tell
Mhm.
you right now, my 6-year-old daughter comes to class with me sometimes, and she may not know everything, of course, but if she doesn't know it, boom, she's got it, right? So you got to get out of your own space. Um, and if you're taking a heated class, I would prepare to drink a lot of water beforehand, and I would also make sure to take electrolytes after. So drinks like some Gatorade or something,
Yeah.
because you will realize your body has literally detoxed. And one of the things that caught me off guard was I finished the class, I drank tons and tons of water, and when I went to the bathroom, I still peed yellow, like crazy yellow. And I
Yeah.
had to recognize that my body, it was taking all that water, right? But there was no nutrients in that water besides just water. And my
Mhm.
body was like, we need more. We need more. Please give us more. We need
Yeah.
something else besides this. Please give us something else. So come into it with an open mind. Really just get out of your own head and enjoy yourself and stay hydrated if you're going to take a heated class. If you're going to take, ooh, so I guess I can stop right there and say, figure out what class works for you, right? And this is the hard part because as a beginner, you're not what I've noticed a lot of websites, they're not very good at saying what's beginner and what's not.
Mhm.
And if they do, it it says beginner and it turns people off. I'm not sure why the word beginner turns people off, but it does.
It really doesn't. I think it's an ego thing.
Maybe so. Maybe
Yeah.
so.
Like
Well, you
I
know
can
what?
do
You're right.
this. It's fine.
You're right because
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago I taught a fundamental class. That's how we describe it now.
Yeah.
And I said after the class was over, and I was like, when we first tried to push this class out, it was considered to be like the beginner class to intermediate. And she's like, well, I don't feel like a beginner here. I feel like an intermediate to advanced. And I had taken the class just recently before that, and I was like, yo, this tore me down to like fundamentals. Like I don't remember some of this stuff because I've been
Never
doing
got
my
the
own
chance.
right.
Yeah.
Like I've been like, pew. This was so long ago that I'm not even thinking about it anymore. Right. Like, dang. It was 2013 when I first started this. That's when I was thinking about this. Like now it's 2022. I'm not thinking about this. So the basics are the best, and if you can find a class that says fundamental or basics or anything like that, I encourage you,
Foundational. Yeah.
yes, take that class. Don't worry about it because I can tell you right now, being someone who teaches a class that is all levels, I will start with basic, but by
Mhm.
the end of that class, I'm not really talking basic anymore, unfortunately. It goes like this. The first time I go through it, it's basic. The second time is intermediate, and the last time I don't speak anymore, right?
Yeah.
The other 2 rounds are you, right? So, excuse me, the other 3 rounds are you. So I do that progressively throughout class. And by the end of class, I'm still talking, but I may not be necessarily hand holding you as hard as I was anymore. Because
Mhm.
at this point, you're probably not listening anymore, first and foremost, because you're tired. And if you are now so deep into your own self to where you don't have to necessarily try and match anything else than what your body's telling you,
Yep.
right? It speaks, right? It'll tell you, I'm tired. We can only do 4 poses at this point. I can't do more than that, right? So beginners out there, just get out of your head. You know, try do a tiny bit of research or ask the staff. That's going to be like your biggest giveaway. Ask the staff if you can, what's a better option for you if you take your class and you felt like that was overwhelming for you,
Yeah.
because I guarantee there's an option for you. And I guarantee once you find your option, you'll love it, and then it'll make you want to go back to finding out if this is still the big test or not. Because maybe you never like that type of class. Maybe heat is just no good for you. But you like this class where it's a little warm and the lights are dim and you don't have to do all these crazy poses. You can just keep it pretty grounded. or maybe you just take a yin class and that's where you're letting go of those emotions hidden in your body, right? So
Hmm.
there's options for you, and I guarantee you, if you're a crazy person and you want to do hit yoga, there's that for you too. So I teach a class like that, and I like teaching it because it's fun, but I also understand that as any beginners out there living life doing this, it can be daunting. Don't don't be overwhelmed. It's a lot easier than you think. I promise. It's much more fun than you think, and everything that you know about yourself will change if you give it time. Just give it time.
Yeah.
I give it time. I say if you can take 6 classes, six, by the seventh one, you'll kind of have a good idea of how to do
Yep. And just
so.
to like even sprinkle a little bit more onto what you had
Mm-hmm.
said about, the finding the class that works for you, don't feel like you need to latch on to that class forever. Like sometimes one style suits you in this phase of life, and
Mm-hmm.
a few months down the road, a different style might actually be what works best for you. Allow yourself to be open to experience all of them to find what works for you in the moment.
Exactly. You gotta just throw yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's a new arena, so why not? Right? that's how we. That's how. I mean, that's how I feel like we all started. We were just like, yoga,
Look, I barely practice ashtanga anymore.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like I come like when I'm building up class, I think of the series, right? Right. But at the same time, I'm like, but I want to do this thing from over here that I saw.
Yes,
Right?
like
Of
Ashtanga and Rocket will always be a foundation for my vinyasa classes, but
course.
I deviate a lot. And even in
I,
my own practice, my practice looks a lot more yin and restorative than anything.
ooh,
Yeah.
my practice, my personal practice is so non it's so far and away from Ashtanga. It's like this amalgamation of Ashtanga, Tai Chi, Capoeira, and this stuff called Animal Flow. If you guys are
I
familiar with
love
it,
animal flow.
it's like so cool. It's so dope. But like, I like this idea of because I was so big into Bruce Lee growing up, and I love this. And Be Water, my friend. It was like such a huge theme in my life, and I just, especially being a swimmer, so like that's how.
Of course,
But
of course.
I would always those things always stuck out to me. And when I practice, I think of myself moving like a wave. So I have to breathe and move like that in order
Hmm.
to navigate that. And so, like, my personal practice is so me, right? And you'll figure it out, right, for you.
Yeah.
And right now, that's where it's at. And I know, as things begin to change for my body, there are days when I get on my mat and I'm like, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to sit here in deer pose for about 5-10 minutes. We'll flip
Hmm.
sides and then we're going to get up and go about our day, right?
Yep, and that's it.
That's it.
So tell us where we can experience these classes of yours.
Ooh, okay. So on Tuesdays at 6:15, you can catch me at the studio in Bishop Arts. It's called Copal. It's Kopal Studio. It's off Jefferson Boulevard. If you want to come check me out, it's actually a really dope studio. It's got a bunch of plants in there. It's probably one of the most beautiful studios I've ever walked into. Just for me personally, it has a feel of wow, this is comfortable, right? So that's Tuesday nights. Wednesdays and Thursdays you can catch me. Well, Wednesday, Thursdays you can catch me at Lifetime in Plano, 6 o'clock for Vinyasa, and you'll be able to catch me on Thursday 6 and 7:15 for Root. Root is my fundamental class. For those
Nice.
out there, I don't teach on Fridays, so that's my day off. I had to remember that.
All
I
right,
had to remember.
good.
Um, I I do teach Saturday mornings, 8:30 Lifetime Plano. That's like my staple. That's been there for I've been teaching that class for years now. I love that class. And my Sundays are early mornings. It's 8 a.m. Karma Fitness Studio in Frisco. So I say that I take people to church on Sunday mornings. I know some people might get mad at me for saying that, but that's how I get down, man. I like to have a little bit of fun with what I do. And lastly, I'm going to be teaching soon in the future at the Lifetime location out in Craig Ranch, McKinney. I literally took that Copal studio job because I wanted to find something more Dallas based. So if you are on the south side of town of Dallas, if you are in a place like that, you can catch me at that spot. Copal, it's Latin owned. They love having people of color in there. They are very, very open to all body shapes. All places are, but especially that place, Copal. I've just it's a phenomenal place. It's a new place. I definitely would have people check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Justin, this has been extremely fun. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this
for sure.
because I think we were supposed to link up for when I was still doing this on Instagram, but
Yeah.
been, but
I don't know
I
either.
think
I think
fate meant that this was supposed to happen today.
yeah, for sure,
But
for sure.
so thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Tierney,
Um,
you've been fabulous. You've been patient with me, and I've been patient with you. Like we have this understanding that hey, we're living life, we're doing our thing, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to talk to you. I'm thankful to just be able to just reach out and hopefully just hopefully change someone a little bit, and hopefully open them up to something maybe they weren't thinking about before. So I
absolutely.
appreciate.
Oh yeah. Where can the people find you on social media and all those things?
That's easy. So really, I only have Instagram. I don't mess with anything else. I have a Facebook, but it's pretty much just there for family. I don't ever touch it.
Same.
Literally. So my Instagram is my name, literally the Justin Justin High High. That's it. The at the Justin High. So if you can't figure that out, I mean, they can follow your page and then they can find me on there.
And there'll be all the things in the show notes too.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. So if follow me on there, I'm always posting stuff. I'm always just living life and spreading the good word if I can. You'll probably see me and my daughter on there a whole lot too. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Justin, have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much to everyone listening, and I will see you next time with another fabulous guest. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Yoga in Black podcast. Next week, I'll chat with Bree Winston. And every Tuesday, we're airing a new episode, so be sure to check back in next week on Spotify or check us out on YouTube. You can find us at www.yogainblack.net or the Yoga in Black podcast on YouTube or on Instagram at yoga.inblack. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.